Question is, what am I going to eat? Question is, what am I going to eat? Question is, what am I going to eat?
Okay, dietary cleansing.
Question is, what am I going to eat?
Okay, dietary
There are
cleansing.
times where I have a more or less strict diet, but there are also lots of times where I'm emotionally so involved that I simply go and buy a packet of chips. Because then I've got no capacity to cook. Plus maybe I have to save resources, and then I feel like, well, maybe for a day I can just live off a packet of chips, and then tomorrow I'll cook again.
Question is, what am I going to eat?
Okay, dietary cleansing.
What am I going to eat? Question is, what am I going to eat? Question is, what am I going to eat?
Oh no, he's wearing the same stuff. Yeah, because he slept in it, my friend. He slept in these clothes, and he never brushes his teeth anymore. Okay, dietary cleansing. Okay. Let me just... I have relocated the plants. I'm struggling at the moment against my landlady, who's clearly struggling against herself and all these gossiping neighbors and other tenants that have right, everybody's just so focused on themselves, and they try to block people like me, right, who actually do honest work, because they fail to see the benefit of working together and creating something in such a way that we can all look at it and say, hey, we did this. Because what most people have to face if they are being confronted with somebody like me is literally the rubble of their own choices. So gossip creates spite, spite creates anger and separation, and in that sense we are not cats, and even cats have to learn to kind of get out of the way, right? Like an old tiger will always get to the point where he can no longer fight everyone to produce more offspring, and then he either has to fight one last time and die, or retreat and give up his territory or parts of it to younger spawns of nature. So, why should I worry if I make a recording, I wear the same stuff? I mean, I do cleansing in a completely different way. So this is of course called dietary cleansing. But dietary cleansing is also always a form of emotional cleansing. So I work with people who are stuck and who simply reject everything. And working with people starts with yourself. And once you've done a lot of work on yourself, you can start looking around and say, you know, the tree has to be a bit selfish also until he's in a stable state. So you have to grow into the sky. And when you start to feel stable and you say, I've done my growing and now I feel like I'm here to stay, right? Then you can start supporting others. And that's what you can find in nature. You know, nature in itself, you know, is kind of stable. But it also depends on the environment. I mean, a desert can be stable. The question is, do you want to live in a desert? Or do you want to lead a rich and fulfilling life like a jungle? Or do you prefer like savanna environment in yourself? We're talking about in yourself, because you have to face reality wherever you are. And wherever you are may be simply where you've been born. Because we cannot all escape and migrate elsewhere, because there are also things that hold us. I feel drawn to support my parents in a way. And through me is flowing life, which is energy. But in order to let this energy flow, so I can be creative in what you call make art, creative in what you call do crochet, which is a form of art. You know, craft, handcraft is a form of art. It requires a lot of skill, a lot of honing of skill, a lot of fine-tuning, and so does diet, which is why there are times where I have a more or less strict diet, but there are also lots of times where I'm emotionally so involved that I simply go and buy a packet of chips because then I've got no capacity to cook. Plus maybe I have to save resources, and then I feel like, well, maybe for a day I can just live off a packet of chips and then tomorrow I'll cook again. So, you know, sometimes you live in times of plenty, and sometimes you live in times of, well, what's, oh wow, you know, what's not plenty? So sometimes you've got lush times, right, where you get to play a lot, and then you're a lot in the park, and then you've got times where there's just nothing going on. Nobody's got time for you. Nobody likes you. Everybody just rejects you. You hate your life. You hate everything, but that's what you're facing. So I'm experimenting a lot also with plants, because in that sense, I'm a plant. And sometimes I have to wet my hair, because that's what would normally happen if I was out in nature. And this one really needs it. Every time I do this, I give attention to this being. Oh wow, it's very cooling. Well, maybe I should take fresher water. Then you just let it dry again. Because normally in the forest you would always have moisture, right? There would be mist, you know. I'm like forest people, right? First, I would like to eat now. Question is, what am I going to eat? I can feel myself experimenting a little. The question is, I had a coffee yesterday, but I have made tea already also yesterday. This tea contains black tea, mint, cardamom, green cardamom, a bay leaf, and a bit of garam masala spice blend. I always say without salt and without garlic. So garam masala also comes in variations. There's some that have a bit more black pepper. The one I liked, but you can just experiment. I know, I'm just tickling my neighbor a little. It's from Patanjali. This one. But it's empty already, which is a shame. But I am going to get this again because it was one of the best spice blends I ever had. Or maybe just do it yourself. And this one contains different things than the other. I bought this online. So, but I'll keep it. Maybe it'll come back at some point. Okay, now I have to make a choice. Lots of choices have already been made. And diet is a quest for something. You know, you're looking for something in your life, but you just feel empty all the time. Well, what are you gonna do about that? Well, right now, I just want to boost myself a little, which is clearly a questionable choice, but a choice nonetheless. Because, you know, I'm really sorry. I'm helping my landlady. Her husband died and I'm taking over a lot of work. Okay, she gives me money for this work, but she also gets kind of like a friend, someone to engage with. Because in that sense, I am a friend, but I'm also the friend that tells you you're a dick, you know? You should start creating more and destroy less. There were times where I drank no coffee, but now I feel drawn to it again because I have to push out certain jobs. There's art I have to do, there's a book I need to read and fine-tune it. It's 800 pages. This is one of the tasks I've set myself, and in between I'm trying to do this. You get what I'm saying, right? So I also want to keep these videos versatile, but sometimes I just cannot run around and do all kinds of crazy things for stuff like YouTube because I've already done a lot of crazy things that I wanted to do. I felt like doing them. So if it comes to dietary cleansing, I mean, I just slept for several hours and then I received a message from my landlady at about 9 and she drinks way too much coffee and you can see it that her spirit is weak because she's drinking too much coffee. Now you can have times where you boost yourself with coffee, But then there should be times where you take less. So in a way, you see your diet as a reflection of yourself, but you see it like a tree. You see yourself like a tree. And sometimes you have to prune certain habits because they've been getting out of hand. But you have been feeding them because you're thinking too much. You're trapped on thinking, and you're orienting yourself on people that are worshiping toxic behavior. Everybody drinks coffee, so you drink coffee because everybody drinks it. You know, everybody sits on chairs, and if, you know, because they're afraid if they sit like this is a very strenuous position, my friend. This is like tough as nails, sinking into the couches, weak AF. You know what I mean? I mean, this is a symbol of strength. This is how men can show that they're tough. And this is years of training. Years of training. Because it's mostly mental training, so that I keep sitting like this. And I don't always take the time to prune my own tree. Why not? Oh, look at this. Oh, wow. Super nice. I think I can keep growing. Okay, I'll see if I can get this, you know, back into the light. Now sometimes people are struggling, I give them a little nudge, a little tap on the shoulder. I say, hey, you know, I know you're struggling, but, you know, I'm struggling as well. So how about you do me a little favor, start your cleansing journey, which is hell, but it's gonna get heaven, you know? Think of the little sapling. Until it is a tree, it has to struggle. You know, there's ants that may take leaves. There's all kinds of animals that just, you know, bite off the sapling. You know, it has to struggle. This is Valhalla. Every sapling needs to survive the battlefield of early upbringing. And once you manage to shoot through a certain layer, there's no guarantee. Because I go a lot into the forest. What do you see sometimes? Shabam! Lightning strikes, a tree falls. And suddenly, the tree falls and leans on a tree that's already there. Yeah, is that tree able to withstand the pressure? You know, it's gonna start to bend. And then maybe a storm comes, and suddenly, it breaks. Which is why, okay, you know, but I'm a human being. I can move around, seemingly. But what if I start becoming more like a pillar, and I start to invest myself into the community? Suddenly women come. I, as a man, I'm being pressed into shape like this. Like, seriously, I'm experiencing it right now. I'm right in the middle of two men fell away, and suddenly there's women that lean on me, and suddenly there's other women that come and lean on me emotionally. And there's so much disrespect, man. These women got claws, my friend. They want to scratch out your eyes because there's almost no men anymore. There's no panthers anymore. there's no people who live like this. They're all weak, all the men. They give in to porn, they're mentally weak, they're physically weak. You know, how many men do you know that can do this on such a surface? You know, they just cry. I mean, I feel discomfort, certainly. But I've started to see myself as somebody who wants to face the challenge. And the challenge these days is face the bloody dragon. Find one woman that you say, that's my wife. And then just try to just be there emotionally. Not like be there breathing down her neck, telling her what to do all day. Okay, that's a hard one. Because if you've got a beautiful woman, you will feel drawn to control her. Well, it's better to just be what she wants and let her come forward. That's the best way. Because as a man, you know, that's different. You know, I've seen documentaries about leopards where the female leopard starts calling and then the male comes and then mates with her and then leaves. But with humans, it's a bit different. You know, you have to mark your territory in a way and then keep out other men from taking over your women. You're a bit more like a chimpanzee. You're a bit more like a gorilla. That's more or less who you are. And for that you have to have strong feet and a strong composure. And I'm just beginning to see how this is going. You know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm seeing. I'm seeing myself just emotionally supporting lots of women, but for that I have to be a pillar. And for that I have to have my diet in check. This is not about I'm gonna have sex with lots of women. This is I'm gonna be a husband to one wife, and to everyone else, you know, I'm like the a bit distant shoulder to lean on. You're not gonna sleep in my bed. You know, that's only my wife. You know, you're not gonna sit on my lap. That's only my wife. You know, but you may spend time with me and find solace in being around a man that struggled hard to survive. And women want this, they test it, they want to see if they can lean on you emotionally. Some women just want a man to spend time with, you know, to just, you know, face them, challenge them a little. You know, let them show you their teeth. It's beautiful. I mean, a rose has thorns, right? Is the rose less beautiful because of its thorns? Or is the rose beautiful because it has thorns? Because it knows how to protect its own beauty. And that's what a woman also needs to do. So my landlady clearly needs another outlet because she's letting it out on me now. Her frustration shows she's rebelling against something. But I'm helping her with a lot of stuff, you know. She can call, I call her back, and then she can talk for half an hour and share her worries, and I even give her tips, right? And then I ask her a favor, like I want to cook with gas, and she tries to block me, and then I have to say, well, maybe I have to then let life decide, just do what I want anyway. And if you think that's reason enough to throw me out, well then, you know, that's your problem. But then we will be on different terms. I think this was a bit like friendship. But if your paranoia is getting in the way of, I can help you have your way, but then you have to help me have my way. This is like working together. I give you stability because I do my job, but what's your job then? Well, you have to see to it that in certain ways I'm happy. So a woman that wants her man to give her stability and be there and feed her also has to give something back. So a wife, in a sense, also should be grateful that her man is there and protects her, gives her space for her and her children, and that may be then, in a way, paid with pleasure. But a lot of men fail to see this. A lot of men treat their women with disrespect. And then their women have to live in a state of fear. And then it's hard to say thank you, right? So sometimes I just push women a little. Like yesterday I was working for 4 hours in the front garden, because nobody's worked on it. And I was pulling out weeds. Like ivy was drowning out a lot of the other things. And so I started taking it out. And then my neighbor came and she wore sunglasses, and that's usually a sign of some kind of depression. If you wear sunglasses, then you cannot see clearly any longer. And she was honking at me and just shouting, hello, hello. And I was like, I just ignored her, because if you talk to me like this, what do you want? I can get nasty real fast, but why should I? Because that will just destroy the relationship we have been building. And so what I have learned is to sometimes let them come at me. Now some women, they're really vicious, I'm saying. Like really vicious. And they'll just come at you, and then you also have to be witty, but you cannot be a fool. So the message I sent to my landlady was just saying, maybe I have to be, maybe I'm inclined to test, to challenge you on this, whether you're willing to throw me out if I don't behave in the way that you think, I should behave now, because now she feels like she's in a position of power, but this power may come at a cost. Because if you try to control a man like me, then you cannot be friends with me, right? You should rather try to be like a friend with me. And for that, sometimes as a man, you have to hold your ground. But you have to be better than other people. So it's not about playing vicious, because you have to see other people as part of the tribe. So every neighbor, in that sense, is like a tribe. So here there's a lot of like a growing Muslim community. So these have to be treated like neighbors. They have to be treated with respect. They cannot be treated like enemies, because, that's what's coming from the state. But there are clearly people, just like dietary habits, that have to be sorted out. What does that mean? It means that you cannot be friends with everyone. And not everyone deserves to have a lot of space. So sometimes people need to be challenged, like drug dealers that give drugs to children, You know, I don't have a real problem if you sell weed, but if you sell other things, you know, I think I just have to reject you. So some people, they just have no respect for other human beings, because nobody's forcing you to sell this. You're just trying to up your game. So dietary cleansing is also, you know, you have to reduce certain things in your life. You can, of course, eat sugar, you can drink coffee, but always pay attention to how your reactions change. Because if you start getting more and more toxic and vicious, and your thoughts become more and more suspicious towards other people, and you sit around just hating everyone, like, you know, so you start to worship coffee and forget other people. Well, then you simply have to ask yourself, is this who you wanted to be when you were that little kid? And then no matter what happened to you, it can never be an excuse. It can be something that shines light on why it turned out this way, when you started to become this way. But ultimately, you have to see where the stench is coming from. Stench is caused by habit, stench is caused by, you know, like dietary cleansing. You should sometimes drink bitter gourd, bitter tea, eat bitter, radicchio salad, you know, that kind of stuff, to get rid of some of the things. Like a swollen liver is probably something that a lot of people have in this society because they eat too much fat and too much sugar, and they drink too much alcohol, and they sit too much. So in order to heal a fatty and, you know, like kind of like swollen, broken liver, you should walk more, you should hike more, barefoot hiking, and introduce bitter. Now I'm moving around now because I'm looking for what's gonna fire me up. Now I have seen a way how I can grow more plants in this apartment, because I'm getting a bit better at keeping plants, and that's a challenge for myself. I'm reading The Horse Whisperer, and I have more time for other things because I got rid of all the movies that I had. I chucked all the DVDs, I chucked all the Blu-rays, just threw them into the trash. And what I'm saying is, if you want to have more knowledge on diet and how to cleanse, you have to take the time. You have to take the time. Cooking has to become an active part of your life. You have to know what to eat when. And for that, wow, you have to take the time. And in order to take the time, you have to reduce other habits. So maybe Usually, you would go out to a pub Friday nights, and then you come back on Saturday and you're hungover, and then you just make every Saturday a lazy day, and then you just throw a frozen pizza into the oven. Well, new idea. Instead of going to a pub on Friday night, maybe you just say, I'm gonna stay at home and I'm going to do something creative, or maybe I'm gonna, I don't know, man, whatever you want to do. And then on Saturday I'm just gonna make a pizza myself. Well, I'm not too fond of yeast, because if you eat too much yeast, yeast starts growing through your body and takes over your mind, and then you become part of the mindless many whose minds are being consumed by organisms that are taking over their body. And that's the truth. I've seen it in myself. I stopped eating yeast for some time and did an anorganic sulfur cleanse, and then I reintroduced yeast again, and I started to drink beer and eat yeast products. And several weeks after, my mind was so dirty that I was seeing humans as like insect beings. And the moment I started cleansing with anorganic sulfur again for some weeks, it started to disappear. Like, I literally had this feeling in my mind there was something else in there. Because a fungus is another being. It consumes, it grows, it spreads through your entire organism, and when it takes over your body, it grows into your mind. And that, of course, connects to last week's longer main video thing, the mind in a clean state. There are very few people whose minds are in a clean state. I can get your mind sorted out in certain ways, but at some stage you have to take responsibility for your mind. I'm taking responsibility for mine. You have to take responsibility for yours. I can give you a nudge in the right direction, but if you continue to reject me instead of maybe the giant oppressor, then you're just a slave. And some slaves just stay slaves, and some are more like Free Willy. But even Free Willy, had to free himself from sucking up to humans. And so I'm just reading The Horse Whisperer. And you may have a diet that's designed to keep you trapped. You may have a diet that you simply keep because you've been taught at an early age that's how you should eat, and if you don't eat that way, you were being punished. So if you didn't eat your mother's food, you were being punished and sent to your room, or you had to sit there until you ate it because you didn't want to eat it, because maybe she made the food from a place of hate and you didn't want to eat that. And because she was living in a state of hate, she was then rejecting you. So a lot of mothers and fathers are like, you either love me for who I am, or you're gonna get punished. Well, but in order to love you for who you are, I should feel safe in your presence, right? Well, I can say that I don't think I felt safe in the presence of my parents because they were screwing around with my mind. So it clearly shows that there was something already in their minds. I'm just saying, right? So you have to see where you're at, and then you have to build up on it. Just because you're not obese doesn't mean your diet is supporting your spirit. And for that, you simply have to find out where you stand. What's the state? I mean, can you remember things without writing them down? Like, can you easily remember appointments, or do you forget? Well, if you keep forgetting, I would simply say you have to start to cleanse. For me, several weeks of anorganic sulfur clearly did it. Fasting may work. Reducing sugar, introducing bitter. There is no need in that sense for an anorganic sulfur cleanse. This is something you're really depressed and something needs to change, and then the anorganic sulfur can help for some time. But at some stage, what I learned is that anorganic sulfur is good for like a for a fresh start, like a kick-starting a fresh start. But if you take it too long, yeah, it's hard to say, but I think anorganic sulfur is quite hot. It can burn out a lot of the stuff you're trying to get rid of, but at some point you're hitting rock bottom. And then the sulfur just destroys you. And so for some weeks you can do it, but then you should stop. If you feel at some point, because if you're living in this world and you sometimes eat food that's just around, right? I do occasionally eat bread and stuff. It may start to grow again. Well, then you simply have to pay attention. And then you can occasionally do a cleanse again, because you know now how your mind feels like. And in that sense, I am hearing Terence McKenna say this. I know the contents of my own mind. And sometimes he took things and he said that was not, it was like lurking around. There was something in my mind that I felt like didn't belong. And that's what I started to feel after I had stopped eating yeast, and then I started again by drinking beer and just seeing what would happen. And I realized this stuff was taking over my mind. It's really vicious and it's persistent. And anorganic sulfur gets rid of it. But then you have to start to become active. So during the cleanse, it's going to be heavy. But you also have to throw out all the instant foods, no more fast food, less going to restaurants and cafes. Do it yourself. This is DIY. This is, you need to take responsibility and actually do something with the time you've been given. Instead of just sitting around and being lazy. Now, I keep plants, and the deeper my meditation becomes, because I learn to be strong and sturdy and stable like a true human, the more plants I am able to keep alive. And the more plants I am able to keep alive, the more spirits I am able to feed and nourish, if you know what I mean. So each plant to me also in a way represents a human being. So I'm getting better at gardening, I'm getting better at keeping myself alive, I'm getting better at communicating, in supporting people, and for that I have to have my diet in check. Like I said, I can have times where I just say, hey, you know what, I'm just gonna buy chocolate. But then it shouldn't become a habit again. And if I eat, like, let's say I just buy a normal, like a salted caramel chocolate bar with 50% sugar, then the next time I buy it, I should just go for the 100% chocolate again. I'm just saying. So never just keep making the same choice over and over again. So yeah, I may drink a coffee today. How about tomorrow? You know, why do we always feel like if we do it once, you have to do it all the time over again? You just have to keep observing. And this is really hard, because it's really hard to train your mind to be flexible again, because everybody's so set in their ways. Flexibility, you know, you can be flexible in your body, but you also should be flexible in your mind. And that's what Zen is. That's what spontaneity is. That's what intuitively choosing what you're gonna eat today, how you're gonna cook, which spices do you need. And sometimes you need to sit and wait for maybe 50 minutes before you see what to cook today. Or sometimes maybe while you're, you know, maybe you still have a 9-to-5 job. While you're working your 9-to-5 job, you keep probing what you're gonna cook today, because every day is different. There's gonna be different customers. You know, maybe you're working in a call center, different calls are gonna come in. Maybe you're receiving an email, you know, I don't know, man, your friend just died. And then you just have to keep reacting to it. Because, yeah, sure, maybe you think now it's bad that your friend just died or your parents are gonna die or whatever. But this is part of life. So one part of sadhana and spirituality is preparing yourself to die. And one way to do that is simply accepting death. It's gonna happen one day, my friend. But you can make a choice. You can say, I keep my diet in check. I keep myself in check. I have to keep my shadow in check. But also my light, because my light can burn out your eyes, my friend. And that's the hard truth that so many people just throw around like it's nothing. You have to be careful in certain ways. So my way of communicating is very fine-tuned. You know, I'm like ecstatic. I try to use words and I'm very subtle. So I'm not gonna play dirty, but I'm gonna, yeah, well, that's hard to say. You know, I'm honest, but I'm also a being of nature, and for that, I'm gonna struggle to survive. And if you're gonna drown me, I'm just gonna mirror you that you cannot hold your ground against me, because you're just sitting all day, and I'm squatting, and I'm hiking barefoot, and I'm, you know, ripping out roots with my bare hands. I don't use gloves. I reduce the amount of tools that I use. And then I simply work hard, and I'm working all the time, and you just sit around and gossip. So you're like a weed, you're like a parasite, you're like yeast to me. You know what I'm saying, right? You're trying to take over my mind because you're trying to make yourself look like super good, but I cannot see this in you. I mean, there may be something good in you, but you've been corrupted, which says you're weak. You're weak. You know, you tell me, what do you want here? We're living in a social state, but you're not social, you're antisocial. Or you just socialize with gossipers. So to me, you're just a weed, you know? You're the Evi that's taking over the tree, sucking out its nutrients. And I'm simply not gonna allow you to do that in my hive. Because my hive is my mind, is everyone I'm connected with, and you're not gonna get in there. Unless you start your cleansing. And if you don't wanna cleanse, well, you know, go down the drain, my friend. And it took me some time to figure that one out. How much she's gossiping I gave her some information just to test, and then in the end, it backfired. And if it backfires, then you know she's dishonest. But then I can use this information and say, okay, I know how to deal with her now. Complete rejection. I'm gonna take nothing you give to me, not even compliments. And that's why yesterday when my neighbor said to me, can I give you a compliment? I said, you cannot buy me with words. I'm looking for deeds. And I have picked out your deeds. You're dishonest and you gossip and you're a bully and your man just fell away, which means you've got nothing anymore. And that's your problem. And that's Job's message. I've had it in my own way, but I wanted to live and I struggled to survive. And age is relative. I don't care how old you are. I can see you've been lazy for years already. You've been living like this for years already. And if I hadn't come along, you know, my entire family would be in a completely different state. I did my cleansing, and that changed the way my family thinks. I have to face off my family in a lot of ways, because in some ways my father is, you know, a weakling because of his own history, and sometimes your history bites you in the rear, and then maybe suddenly it's your child that picks up where you left off, and you're grateful. Because maybe you've just been pulling yourself along and he says, hey, you know, let's have a tea together. Which is better than, you know, hating your own father. It's learning to love him and seeing how you can, in a way, give back. Now, I can feel it's starting to get a bit sleepy, my right and left leg, but this is the longest time I have sat in this position for some time. I'm still struggling to not bite off my fingernails or with my toenails. I don't know, I never felt inclined to bite them off, so why my fingernails? Well, I think I'm also afraid to injure people. But sometimes you simply have to show, I've also got claws. I can be super nice, I can be super friendly, but if you're taking it for granted, this may just fall away. A lot of people had to realize this. I can be there and I can support you in some ways, but if you keep coming, you know, I will be less and less friendly. And then I will simply tell you the truth. Hard truth. You know, you're taking me for granted, you're leaning on me, I'm helping you, and you think you can forbid me to cook here with gas, which is allowed? If I look at the law stuff, it's allowed to do this. Others are doing it, and you think you can forbid me to do it? Well, then you may have to throw me out of this apartment, because I'm gonna cook with gas, whether you want it or not. And if you want to make this a battle, well, who are you fighting? The guy who's helping you, supporting you emotionally, makes you tea? No, are you gonna reject that guy? You know, think again. Who are you orienting yourself? Who's your idol? You're idolizing women that are so dishonest. You know, it's terrible. So, you know, it's your choice. You know, it's your choice. You know, it's like old ladies trying to win your favor by leaning over the fence, like letting their things hang out. It's like, is that supposed to impress me? Maybe you should start hiking and do some crochet. Actually participate. you know, and start making things, because this is nothing to accomplish. This is nothing to accomplish. If I smell perfume, I'm like, what's this? You know, how unnatural. So I just smell the way I do. And that also comes with diet. So start leading a conscious life. Because if I reject you, then you're clearly dishonest. And that's then your problem. Because I'm not gonna waste my time and fight with you all the time. Because I've got better things to do. So I'm just gonna focus on my art. Because what are you to me? You see what I'm saying, right? You see in what a mentality I'm living in. What I had to, how I had to change my mind my entire life to survive in this world. And this is your